Buenas noches, Northeastern. I am Carlos Sartori, and I graduated from this amazing university with 2 degrees. I have an MBA and a mechanical engineering degree. Today, I am a global sourcing manager at IPC, where I oversee the packaging strategy for over 22,000 Subway restaurants, and this is across the American continent. On behalf of Northeastern's local community and as a proud member of the Young Global Leader, I'm truly excited to welcome you all to our Miami campus and to the 2025 Global Leadership Summit. Look around the room. Tonight, we are joined by our visionary leader, President Aoun, his upper management team, oh, there he is. We have members of our Board of Trustees, including the Chairman of the Board, Rich Zamore, we have members of John Murchison Honors Program Scholars, the Young Global Leaders, alumni, students, professors, parents, and friends of Northeastern. Your presence makes this gathering truly special. For those new to the GLS, this summit is more much than just a conference. It is a gathering of bold minds across generations, committed to exploring pressing issues of our time. Over the next 2 days, please expect to hear from inspiring leaders, connect with entrepreneurs, students, and visionaries. Many of us have forged lifelong friendships at this event, and I hope that the same will be true for you. Miami is a perfect city to host this year's summit, not only because of its magical beauty and dynamic culture, but because it reflects global transformation and connection across the world. This city is attracting entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and major real estate and finance firms. But not only that, we know that Miami is also more than business. Miami has a lifestyle. Think of world-class dining, a vibrant nightlife, wellness, sports, and a rich multicultural atmosphere influenced by Europe and Latin America. More importantly, Miami is a hub for Latin America. It is home of over 1,000 multinational headquarters and it serves as a bridge for trade, finance, and culture between these two worlds. It is fitting that Northeastern, with over 14 campuses across Canada, the US, and the UK, has chosen this location for this year's summit. Our Miami campus, focusing on entrepreneurship and local partnerships, demonstrates the university commitment to global experiential learning. Tonight, we will explore Miami Critical's role as a gateway to Latin America. And we have an amazing panel of senior executives who will share their insights on Miami's strategic importance. I am now pleased to welcome to the stage Maria Alonso. She is a regional dean and CEO of the Miami campus. And with her leadership, she's shaping Northeastern impacts on this dynamic culture. Tonight, she will be guiding us through the panel. Maria, over to you.
Well, thank you, Carlo. It is so exciting to have you and fellow young global leaders and members of our global Husky community with us tonight. On behalf of our staff, faculty, and students, many of whom are here in this room with us, welcome, bienvenidos, bienvenue, benvindo a Miami. It is also my privilege to acknowledge President Aoun, Chairman Rich Zamore, and members of our Board of Trustees, as well as Northeastern senior leadership team, many of whom are here tonight. As the newest and 13th of 14 campuses, we are so proud to be a part of this vital and vibrant global university system and the growing impact and reach that it has. Miami's strategic location and cultural ties to Latin America and the Caribbean is the backdrop for tonight's conversation. I'm honored to be joined by fellow community stakeholders and industry leaders who will provide their unique insights on Miami's role as the capital of Latin America and the Caribbean, a true epicenter of commerce, of culture, of innovation. Please help me welcome to the stage tonight's panelists, dear friends and colleagues and stakeholders in Miami's success. Juan Carlos, or JC Liscano, Vice President of Miami International Airport Hub Operations for American Airlines. Jose Tomas, Chief Administrative Officer for Televisa Univision. And Luis Vasconcelos, President Latin America and the Caribbean for FedEx and a proud alumnus. So to set the stage, let us consider a few notable statistics about our community's global nature, which I think is very befitting as we host this Global Leadership Summit. Miami is the #1 city for business with Latin America and for foreign direct investments. That's year after year, decade after decade. Miami is the #1 trading partner to Latin America, representing 2/3 of Florida's two-way trade. And as Carlo noted, but I think it's well worth underscoring, Miami is home to the Latin American headquarters to over 1,000 multinational corporations right in our backyard. So let's dive in. So thank you, gentlemen. I so appreciate you having accepted my invitation to be with us tonight. I want to start with infrastructure as the foundational to connectivity to the region. JC, I read that Miami International Airport recently has displaced JFK Airport as the busiest U.S. gateway for international passengers. I mean, that's pretty amazing when you think of the fact that we're a 2.7 million, we have 2.7 million residents in greater Miami versus New York City. So since you run the largest gateway in the American Airlines business, can you tell us a little bit more about American's operations at MIA and the importance of the MIA hub to American's overall business?
Sure, thank you, and thank you for having us here, and good evening to everybody. JC Liscano, Juan Carlos. I am Colombian. I'm from Cali, and I grew up in New York, but I live now here in Miami. This is home. So American Airlines in Miami. This is going to sound like a commercial for you. I don't need to give you a commercial about the airline. But I need to give you a little bit of context. I'm responsible for 14,600 employees here in Miami. I want you to think about what that economic impact is to a community. That's $1.9 billion in payroll just to run an airline here in Miami. 46 countries, 160 destinations, 90 of which are international and unique only to American. And so oftentimes people that live here think, hey, I'm going to get on a flight and I want to go to this destination within a 3-hour flight range, right? There's a lot of them. But I want you to think about the other side of that. Miami becomes the door, the entry point to the United States and the rest of the world when they want to travel. So oftentimes we celebrate a startup of new service, but really at the end of the day, it is also now opening up the doors to the economy of that point of destination as well. So it is really important to our network. There is no other Miami in the United States. Now I know this may sound like umbrage. Every airline has a place they call their hub, right? It could be, pick any city in the United States, but nobody really has a hub in Miami like American does. 35 years ago, we believed in that notion, and we bought all of Eastern's routes, $470 million. It's a little bit more than $1 billion in today's money, because we bet it big. We thought the region was just going to blossom, and I think you would agree with me, it has. So as we think about the future of the airline, we think about where people want to go. We know that the Americas is it, the Caribbean as well, but there is no other city in the United States that is the best launch point to be able to fly to all those destinations other than Miami. And it gives it a very strategic advantage.
I think we all agree, and certainly everybody on this stage agrees. But shifting now from passengers, Miami is also the busiest international cargo airport and busiest seaports in the United States. Yeah. Luis, please talk to us about FedEx Latin American Caribbean division, which you run, including its relative size and impact to the broader Federal Express Corporation.
Thank you, Maria. So globally, I guess we all know FedEx. We operate in 220 countries and have about 550,000 employees globally. In contrast to Latin America, we operate in 49 countries and territories and have about 25,000 employees. Back to the importance of Miami, I would say 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have as many investments in Miami as a hub. But if you look at the historical growth of what we do from Miami, we used to connect only 4 countries and territories out of Miami many years ago. Now we're expanding to connect 34 countries and territories out of Miami. If you look from a cargo perspective, Miami Airport today is the #1 airport in the US. From the products we move across the globe, all the way from seeds in Chile and flowers in Ecuador and Colombia to medical devices in Costa Rica, or pharmaceutical products in Puerto Rico, or high-tech devices in Mexico, they all connect one way or another through Miami. So it's a wide range of possibilities that we see that we continue to expand out of here. As I said, we continue to invest heavily here. We just launched a cold chain facility at the airport so we can host the flowers that come from Ecuador and Colombia every day, the seeds that come from Chile, the wine that come from Chile, the pharmaceutical devices that come from Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic. And we'll see the trend just to continue to grow. Just to give you some context, we like a lot of data at FedEx. We're a data-driven company. So Miami clears 91% of the flowers in the United States.
You stole my fun fact. That was going to be my fun fact.
Another fun fact, so we moved most of the flowers from Ecuador and Colombia. There was a big dispute who has the most beautiful roses, whether it's Ecuador and Colombia. But I had good proof that I'm going to have to disappoint you there, JC, but they say it's Ecuador because it's closer to the Equatorial line, and then you have better terroir
JC,
to grow the roses.
carnations.
But the Colombia flowers, we also love them. So we have flights every day from Bogota, Medellin, and Quito, bringing flowers to Miami, right? So we have a big ramp at the airport here. As I said, it's very diverse. We see exponential growth coming out of Miami. It's amazing the possibilities that we can connect. When you look at the trade partners with the Miami airport, the top 3 trade partners are Brazil, Colombia, and Chile, followed by China. So that's very impressive to see the level of growth we continue to see as Miami connecting the rest of Latin America. We have our headquarters here in Miami in Blue Lagoon. And as we say, our headquarters in Miami looks and feels a lot more global than the headquarters in Memphis, which is the global headquarters. Because just to give you context, I have 15 senior officers working in LAC, of which 9 are from different nations. From India to Lebanon to Costa Rica to Mexico to Chile, Brazil. So it's really, truly diverse, right? So it's good to see this exponential growth out of Miami. It's good to see Miami Airport with our friends from American expanding and growing. We actually grow together. We're partners, we're customers of each other, we admire each other's businesses. So it's good to see both companies looking at Miami Airport and Miami as a connecting hub to Latin America in the same positive way. And I'm sure we'll continue to see more growth coming from the region, and especially Miami playing a significant role in the growth of Latin America.
Thank you, Luis. You've alluded to it, but culture and people have also played a vital role in Miami's evolution into the capital and true epicenter of the region's commerce. I have some fun facts. You're going to want these. But I want to turn over to Jose, whose company just recently, a couple of years ago, completed a $5 billion merger, nothing big. But it was the combination of Televisa, which is a Mexican powerhouse, and Miami-based Univision. And together, Televisa, Univision have created the world's leader in Spanish language media. So please tell us, Jose, am I hired? No, I'm kidding.
By all means, you are.
Tell us a little bit more about your business overall and the role that Miami's cultural diversity has played in the company's global reach and appeal.
Well, I'll say that the first thing we did was we moved our corporate HQ to Miami, because we do have two hubs, or we originally had two hubs, one in New York and one in Mexico City. But we recognized that where the talent was here in South Florida, and where the talent wanted to come, particularly the bilingual talent that we were recruiting so aggressively, actually wanted to move to Miami. And that hasn't changed, by the way. I think it's very obvious to many folks, not only in this room, but as you look at the Wall Street Journal articles that are promoting the financial services. I see Ken's head. The financial services, you see engineering roles, you see computer science roles. We talked about it earlier in subgroups here. It's not unique to us, and we don't just recruit beautiful actors and amazing anchors on TV. We do recruit quite a bit of folks in finance, accounting, in human resources, in all disciplines. And most recently, what we have been aggressively recruiting for are computer engineers, software engineers. Why is that? And maybe I'll do a kind of a query here, because the last time I did this, it was all interns, so I knew the answer, what it was going to be. So maybe what I'll do, since this group is so diverse, I'll ask the question differently, and I'll ask, how many of you in this room do not have linear TV or traditional TV at home? Meaning you don't have cable TV, or you don't have direct TV, or you don't have a traditional, the bunny ears. How many of you do not have it? So it's a fairly large number, and I thought I was going to see a cross-section that was mainly going to be driven by age demographics, but that wasn't the case. Yeah. But the reality is, in some circles, especially as you start going through internships and we start seeing the internship programs, the number of individuals that are cutting the cable is dramatic. And you've heard that, now you're starting to see commercials all over the place, Sling and Hulu and Roku, and everybody cutting the cord. The reality is that part of the rationale behind the merger of combining the largest production firm, the largest producer of Spanish language content in the hemisphere, along with the largest distributor of Spanish language content in North America, and putting those two together, now you have the full, what we call the glass to glass, the camera, person, all the way to you watching it, whether it's on your phone or on the screen. But here's what we didn't have. What we did not have is what Netflix does very well, the streaming business. And that's what we're starting to see. And I know that could be a very robust conversation, and maybe we'll talk about it a little later. But that dramatically changed the landscape of our business. We launched our streaming business 2 years ago. It is today a $1 billion business. So just in 2 years, we grew that business from nothing to a $1 billion business, all managed, by the way, out of Miami. Our teams are all here, our leaders for the streaming organization. It's called VIX, so you may want to download VIX for those of you that have. We'll have to figure out how to get you a
shameless plug, but thank you.
A free subscription for a short period of time at a minimum. And we'll figure it out, Maria.
We will.
But I will say that the products are incredible, to the point that yesterday, or sometime, I think it was maybe Friday, I saw an announcement by Netflix that they are investing $1 billion in Mexico. $1 billion in Mexico in production facilities. They're reviving this really, really antiquated, old studio. Yeah. And we have the most amazing studio. It's grander than MGM, than anything you've ever seen in Mexico City. A facility in San Angel. We have over 9,000 people working in this studio. We have a school that produces actors and actresses, which are now, many of them, extremely famous. So we find them in their teens, and we groom them and teach them the art of acting, and to the point where they are now, some of them are very famous actors, and in some instances, they're no longer just in Televisa. Now they're big screen actors. But it is a business that has evolved with the focus that it is only and solely Spanish language. We don't do Spanglish. I do Spanglish because I'm from Miami. But we don't do Spanglish. We don't do English. It is purely Spanish language. And we just signed a deal in Spain that is also going to be distributing the content in Spain. So it's not unique to just the US and Latin American markets. Now we're going into the European markets as well.
Well, it's very interesting because in Miami there's always been this narrative, well, why would you speak Spanish? I mean, young people don't speak Spanish. And you've just said quite the opposite. And obviously the business results point to it. Here's some fun facts. 54% of Miami-Dade County, the residents, are foreign-born. 67% of our population are native Spanish speakers. So this is not first gen. These are people that actually were native Spanish speakers. This is a minority-majority community. That means that 80% of our population is not white Anglo-Saxon. 68% of our population is of Hispanic heritage, and 18%, 17% is African American and or Haitian Creole. This is a global city. And I'm very proud of this city. I am a native Miamian. I was born in Detroit, but that was 3 months of my life. My heritage is, I'm Cuban American. I'm first generation. I'm very passionate about our community because it is different from every other community, even those that are very multicultural across the United States. So sorry, because I'm really the moderator. I shouldn't be adding here. But JC or Luis, I don't know from your own personal perspectives, professional perspectives, like what role does Miami's diverse workforce play in serving the Latin American and Caribbean region?
Go ahead and jump in and then pass.
I want to add just a few other comments about Mexico. I think President Mexico City could be considered as the next candidate for a campus for Northeastern because
Big enough.
there you go.
buy Netflix and work with you.
If there's a country
idea.
in Latin America that's benefiting from nearshoring, from foreign direct investments, despite all the complexities that are going on, it's Mexico. So all of our large global customers continue to invest and expand, and the country is designed for trade, for growth. Mexico City, as international city, also head of a lot of global companies across the globe and for Latin America as well. It's truly an international capital similar to São Paulo. So I would, after Miami, after we see the expansions here, right? Maybe having 10 buildings around, we should consider in thinking broadly and where should we go from here. So back to the context of the diversity in Latin America. We like to say that here at the headquarters in Miami, we have the local knowledge about LAC, but the global perspective about everything else we're doing across the globe. We connect Latin America with the other 220 countries we operate because, again, as we go through our meetings, I say that it feels like a small United Nations with so many different perspectives and experiences coming from different locations. Miami has also been much more attractive to bring talent from other countries. So we have recently brought the VP of Engineering from Lebanon. We brought the VP of Marketing from India. Other people coming to Miami because they feel it's a better environment to grow and cultural fit. Mm-hmm. But the component of being able to connect headquarters for us, which is in Memphis, culturally very different from what we do across the region. So we see that the workforce here, the knowledge, cultural awareness, making those connections, being able to connect with the folks from all the way from Chile to Puerto Rico to Buenos Aires to São Paulo to Taiwan, to Singapore, to England, to headquarters in Memphis. So it brings a very interesting skill set of the workforce in Miami, understanding the local language, understanding the local culture, knowledge, the difficulties across the country. As I say, differently from my peers in Europe or in APAC, in Asia, before I had my first sip of cafecito or espresso, there was an earthquake somewhere, a hurricane somewhere else, an employee was kidnapped here, a president was impeached in Peru. That's even before I have coffee, right? So it's very dynamic, very unique. So having this team here that can read across and understand this is just part of what we do. We need to succeed despite those local nuances, and connecting that well with how the globe is operating is very unique, and having that diversity here really makes a difference for us.
I think when we opened up, you said, look around the room. You used that expression, right? And everybody looked around the room. And I believe this is what the rest of the country is going to look like. Exactly what you see. We are light years ahead of what this country is going to evolve into. And so when I think about talent and I think about diversity, I think about it a little bit differently. This is, at American Airlines, it's 140,000 employees almost. And yes, most of them are domestic, a lot of them international as well. But I'm an exporter of talent. When they did my evaluation at work, they said, you do a good job, you're an exporter of talent. I said, please explain. We do such a good job hiring incredible, entrepreneurial, hardworking people from all over the Caribbean and Latin America. Yeah. And we are sending them all over the rest of our network to be the next future generation of leadership. I want you to think about that for a minute. There's something about where we come from and how we learn to do whatever discipline we choose that makes you exceptionally good when you step out of this place and go do it. Now, I'm not advocating that you leave Miami by any means, but what I am advocating is that you're at the center of excellence in terms of the future leadership in this country. I just hired a senior manager of international. This is the airline's largest international operations. Someone said to me, you need someone that speaks Spanish. I said, I don't agree with you. I don't need someone I need someone that is culturally adept. You give me that person that understands how the globe thinks, and they will be successful in this job. And I just hired Kathy Ann. She's from Antigua. She ran the Eastern Caribbean for us. She's going to run the airline's largest international operation. It is a promotion for her, right? But you need someone that understands who we are, where we come from, and where we are going to be successful in this community. And that is a skill set that you can take anywhere, and it's going to bring you success. So it's kind of how I think about leadership.
I don't like the export
Personally.
model
Me neither.
myself, but anyway, it's okay. Let's pivot. Let's talk about technology, right? I mean, every industry, every sector is being disrupted by innovation and technology. Jose, you started to talk about the streaming business. Clearly now you're going to pay a lot more attention to it since Netflix is hot and heavy into Spanish language. Talk about that business. I mean, it's brand new for you, but it's already $1 billion strong.
There's absolutely no question that we'll continue to see, and many of you are probably tired of having to pay, and you see the commercials at Rocket Money or whatever. You have all these services that you're paying, $6.99 here, $10.99 there. I think over the course of the next couple of years, what you'll see is the same thing that happened in the cable industry, where a lot of these aggregators are going to start to bundle many of these streaming services, and that's where we're headed. We're headed into a world where streaming will continue to decline. It's inevitable that at some point there will be certain markets, certain areas, rural markets where that's not going to be feasible. But at the end of the day, on a global level, in some countries, the concept of streaming is moving even faster than it is in the United States, just because of the adoption rate. Just like it did in Brazil, for example, years ago, they went from 0 to 60 immediately because the towers are fresh. They were putting towers up, and next thing you know, everybody had a smartphone while the rest of us had Blackberries. Some of you don't even know what Blackberries are. Patricia, there's an expert in the room here, by the way, from W Studios, and he's an amazing creative genius. And I didn't know he was going to be in the room, but nice seeing you. I'm sure if you get a chance and you want to have a conversation around some amazing creative products that are being delivered by our studios, there's a gentleman right there. But the product quality has to be superb because the digital component of it, in other words, the glass-to-glass experience is extremely important. It's no longer very old school technology that's coming into your screen. Now you're watching it with an incredible definition on your smartphone, on your tablet, and you're streaming it onto a big screen. That is incredibly important, and that's expensive. That is an expensive proposition as well. So we are competing at all levels. Technology is expensive, talent is expensive, but at the end of the day, the business is headed into a direction where streaming will be dominant, and linear will continue to decline at a global level.
Luis, I know we've spoken about e-commerce and obviously the importance of the customer experience, and FedEx continues to make investments, sizable investments in your e-commerce platform. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Whenever we talk about e-commerce, had a very important milestone, which was pre and post-COVID, right? So today, globally, 9 out of the 10 packages moving across the globe are probably driven by e-commerce, right? And to us, what we really test, what we really measure, and put a lot of effort, it's on the end consumer experience. So sometimes we talk about technology. Are people better served if you have someone fully dedicated to take your call when the call comes? Or are they better served, regardless of who's taking that call, if they're better served if they have a good experience? JC and I were talking about the American Airlines app the other day. I'm going to do a free advertisement for you, but I can purchase a ticket anywhere in the globe in less than 30 seconds. See the sign, boom, ready to go, right? So it's the same for FedEx. One thing I want you guys to think about in terms of change because of technology. We will see more change in the next 10 years than you have seen in the past 100 years. I can guarantee you that. You will see more change in the next 10 years than you have seen in the past 100 years. I was taking a vacation a couple of years ago, first day of vacation. I get in the hotel swimming pool, so I'm going to finally relax. So this gentleman approaches, he's from UK. What do you do? I said, I work for FedEx. Do you work for FedEx? Let me tell you this. When I call the call center, it's taking, okay. And then I took my phone. Let's look at this app here. 3 touches. You're going to have the same experience and the same information. And he says, you know what? Let me try. And we kept communicating 30 days after, 60 days after. And he said, Luis, I don't call. I don't like to call. I rather use the app and rather use AI because it's so much easier. I can do anytime. I can do when I'm having lunch. I can do when I wake up. Today, more than 40% of our calls across Mexico and Brazil are taken by AI. And the level of experience out of 4.5 range of customer satisfaction is 4.4. So people really enjoy and appreciate that level of experience. So with e-commerce, the expectations of customers, it increases every day. In the past, you would go online, go into a website, order a product, be concerned of putting a credit card on the website, be concerned whether the package will arrive or not. Today, it's seamless. You can do out of your phone without even thinking, I'm concerned whether the package is going to arrive, what something's going to happen with my credit card. My mother-in-law, she's 83. She buys everything online. She doesn't go to the mall anymore. Because what happens post-COVID, the logistic companies invested so much in technology and in last mile alternatives that the experience to the consumers has been almost flawless. You order, it's at your door next day.
And a consistent experience, which is what it's all about.
Very consistent
Obviously.
experience. So then we went to great strides to be adaptable in terms of alternatives, not only about technology, but about alternatives. In some locations across the globe, from Mexico or São Paulo, we deliver packages by foot, by bicycle, by motorcycle, by van, by truck, by barge, and by airplane. So if you think about a package leaving New York to go to the countryside of Amazon forest in Brazil, that package is going to fly from New York to Memphis, from Memphis to São Paulo. It's going to truck from São Paulo to Belém. It's going to get on a barge, and it's going to travel 5 days up the river to get to Manaus. By the way, with a cell phone, someone in any location across the globe can buy a T-shirt from a manufacturer, a retailer that I'm sure everybody knows here in China, and it can be at your door in 120 hours. So that's the power of technology, because we think of technology, how fast is enabling us to get things we need, but think of how technology has changed the landscape and giving people opportunities that didn't have in the past. We think of technology, is it going to steal jobs? Is it going to prevent other jobs from being created? But think of how many jobs are being sustained because of technology, how many opportunities of education, of consuming, of medical devices, of medical assistance are being provided today because of technology. And especially as you think of Latin America, I usually have people come to the headquarters. They're not really informed about everything that we produce across the country. They still think that Central America only produces bananas. It does. But most of the medical devices consumed in the US is coming from Costa Rica, from Panama, from Dominican Republic. Most of the ships coming to the US comes from Dominican Republic. Most of the high quality, high intense pharmaceutical products consumed in the US comes from Puerto Rico. Most of the automotive high-tech devices used by the high-tech companies in Boston comes from Mexico City. So technology is enabling nations to progress, to grow, enabling cities and communities also to evolve, not only with the economies, but with education and improving the conditions of what they do and how they live. So as I said, we will see more change in the next 10 years than what we have seen in the past 100 years. Is right in front of us. So one advice I'd give you, always keep thinking about the future, because it's right here in front of us.
Which is so amazing. I mean, AI is reshaping everything, including higher education. Yes. I want to talk about talent, because everything that we've heard over the last 24 months that we've been in Miami, and I think across our global university system, is that talent is the #1 priority. And very selfishly, I would say that Northeastern University is in the talent business, and that our experiential learning is the secret sauce. That's at the core of what we bring to the table, and we ensure that our graduates are career ready from day one. So from a very unique vantage point, JC, you happen to be the chairman of the Beacon Council, which is our community's economic development agency, filled with industry leaders across sectors. And so I'd like to hear from you from that perspective. What are you hearing from our members? What are their challenges? Where do we have gaps in terms of access to early talent?
You know, it's interesting. Within the Beacon Council, which is economic development, there's the Academic Leaders Council. It's each of the university presidents, that form this group, and we engage all business verticals and listen to kind of what's happening. And as Miami's been transforming in the tech sector and the finance sector, finding young sort of team members like maybe some of you in this room is not a challenge. Finding people middle of the road that have families that are looking for affordable living, that maybe need to get their kids into school, is starting to become a challenge. Not a challenge, but starting to become a challenge. And then people on the other end of that spectrum, not a challenge. But it is the production capability of that talent. It's understanding that you now have Northeastern here and other institutions that are now creating pipelines for the jobs that are transforming Miami. Now, I'm very biased. I'm in the aviation tourism sector, right? You need people in hospitality to do some of these jobs, but I'm also hiring aircraft mechanics and pilots to do that job. But as the panorama is changing, as you now have tech, fintech, and you now have all these other industries here, you need a different education within the workforce. And that is indeed becoming an area of demand for us. So we're trying to solve that both with a few initiatives, Talent Bridge Initiative, conversations with the academic institutions about what programs they should be having. It isn't just about a 4-year degree. Can you upskill? We were having this conversation earlier. Are there means to upskill the current residents, right? And so we've created the talent development goals that says by 2040, we took at this age when we initiated this project, in the next 15 years, they'll be in the working sort of category of residents within the community. And if they hit that by 2040, what kind of level of education they should have. And we're driving to achieve 65% of this community to have some kind of higher education, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year degree. And we think that is the right number to achieve to be able to achieve sort of some of the talent goals that we need to continue to fund this iteration that Miami is having.
But aren't we having more competition for that early talent that is skilled in these areas of growth, such as technology, fintech, et cetera? Aren't we having, there's a lot more entrants into the market, right? So many companies relocating to Miami and requiring a different type of skill set. So there's a lot more competition.
So there is competition. There's competition on a global scale, and within the U.S. I mean, look, you still have people that find that New York is sort of that appealing first place for me to go find a job. But I will tell you that right now we're not getting the feedback that says we're having issues filling key essential roles within these sectors yet. And I think a lot of it has to do with Miami. It has to do with this conversation that we're having here. It isn't just a place to work, it's a place to live, work, and play. Everybody discovered what it was like during and post the pandemic. And the attractive quality of being, it's no longer an idea. We are the gateway to the Americas. Period, end of story. We are, I don't know, anybody wants to debate me on that, we can. But because we are.
Not on this panel.
Yeah, because we are, you now have access to this amazing portfolio of talent within Latin America and the Caribbean that are finding an opportunity to come here. I don't think other places necessarily think that way or have that ability. And so think about how many of you have family in the region. I can take you through every decade within the 70s, 80s, 90s. I will tell you the wave of migration that came from Brazil or Ecuador or Colombia, or you tell me the place, and those created these seeds of communities that now are points of attraction. And so when I wake up in Lima and I think about a possibility and a place for me to go work or expand my knowledge or do my next thing, Miami's a very natural, intuitive place to think about.
Startups as well. I mean,
Yes.
there's a wave of entrepreneurship, and obviously we're a bridge, and we're doing that through conferences such as Emerge Americas and others. Jose and Luis, I don't want to keep you out of this conversation, but how about our current workforce and making sure that they remain competitive? Yeah. We talked about upskilling. Anything you'd like to add there?
Just one interesting context on the discussion of Miami. It has become more competitive. At the same time, it's more competitive, but also it's easier to retain compared to 15 years ago. But being in a competitive market can pose challenges. We tend to think mostly about the challenge, but it's actually really good.
That's a great
because it's like playing the Division 1, right? The game is harder, but the rewards are better, and then the game is more fun, yes. Right? So it forces us as company to come up with alternatives to make sure we can retain talent. Because if you get too comfortable, what happens, right? There's no competition, you get too comfortable. Now, in order to retain talent, in order to attract, we have to be more innovative. So we have to offer different, working packages. We have to offer different alternatives for them for employees to grow. So we have developed, especially here out of our headquarters in Miami, programs for cross-functional rotation. So if you work in engineering, you can spend 1 year working in finance or in marketing. You can be transferred to Mexico or to São Paulo or to Buenos Aires to make sure we're keeping them as competitive in terms of their global learnings and the global experience, but also keeping what we do as attractive. And that's the same for universities, for businesses, and for high-tech companies, for services companies like ours. So to keep our talent up to date and up to speed, they have to continue to be adaptable, because adaptability is not a skill that you have today and it's permanent. It has to be evolving every single day as the economies around us continues to change. So adaptability, it's a continuous learning. So it's a key to what we do. And to your point, we're exporting people as well. Like I have people from Brazil working in Netherlands, in Spain, in Portugal. So we're exporting labor. Why? Because they're adaptable, because they understand the uncontrollable challenges of the nature of the business we do. And that's a very important skill in other countries that don't see that very often. So adaptability, skill set, and keeping the game, up with the employees makes a big difference for us here.
Absolutely does. Well, I don't want to keep the audience out of this conversation, so I'd like to open it up for one or two questions from the audience.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Señores, un placer conocerlos, de verdad. Madam, you as well. Sir, it's a pleasure. I graduated in May 2024 right now. So, first panel here. Very excited. Mainly, this is questions for you, Mr. Juan and Mr. Luis. I'm sorry, Mr. Jose, I don't have that question for your industry. But I noticed you said you spent 450 million back in the day, in which today's money it's 1 billion. I wanted to ask you what year was that, and the reasons you decided to see Miami as the hotspot outside of being a geographic setting.
I want to tell you that I own that decision, but I was only 18 years old when that happened. That was in 1988. Specifically, and actually, Maria knows some of the people that were involved.
I do know.
Not that I'm dating you, Maria.
What are you trying to do
But
here?
there was a group of local business leaders that understood how important the access to the Caribbean and Latin America was, and they got a group from the Greater Miami Chamber then, from it wasn't Beacon then at the time, and they flew to Dallas and they convinced the leadership at the moment to purchase Eastern's routes to the region. And that is what set off what actually transpired. It literally went from 19 flights a day to 200 flights almost overnight. And they were able to pick up almost all of the employees that were working for Eastern at the time. But it was that group of visionary
His name
leaders.
was Peter Delara,
Yes.
and he did get a group of leaders across sectors to go to, was it Dallas at
It
the
was
time?
Dallas,
Yeah, it was Dallas. And he made the business case for Miami to build the hub that American Airlines now runs here, the largest gateway in its business. So it is amazing. And he's still a resident in our community, although he's retired.
We go this way.
Yes.
My name's Carlos. I graduated 2010. And I have a question. Do you guys think that the salaries are up to the standards of Miami? When we go to like those big international companies, they pay you more if you go to New York, if you go to the West Coast in Los Angeles, San Francisco. But when you go to Miami, they're like, same salary. When costs in Miami, everyone knows here, are extremely expensive. Why do you think that happens? And if you think that's because everyone wants to come here, so they're like, oh, you want to come here? We're going to pay you less.
Well, since I spent 30 years in human resources, and a couple of folks here can attest to this, we are somewhat behind in terms of our wage equity. And that's because there was such a rapid expansion in South Florida in terms of industries coming in, the financial services, which pays exceptionally well, some other corporations that came in, software companies. At the end of the day, our wage expansion did not grow as quickly. And we're finding that now. For those of us that are sitting around every day talking about retention of talent, today the CEO sent me an email saying, hey, check this person's salary because I heard that the competitor has a position available and he's a perfect fit. I reminded the boss, don't worry about it, he's on a non-compete right now, but let's look at his compensation anyways. But the reality is we have not progressed at the same level. Now, there is a significant disparity, and we've measured this in many ways, and those of you in the room that are practicing HR professionals know this. We've been measuring it, and there are significant disparities in certain levels versus others. You cannot recruit a New York attorney to come down to South Florida without paying almost equivalent New York salaries. You can argue, oh, you're going to save 10, 12%, depending on where in New York, from a property tax standpoint. But the reality is, it's not that easy. We're struggling at certain levels, and that wage issue is going to hit us pretty hard. And that's, I think, why the state of Florida and there's so many organizations, or many of you are familiar with and certainly well engaged in, are dealing with that. But it's going to hit us pretty hard and pretty quick. Yeah. And what does that mean? It means that employers in South Florida are going to have to deal with the issues of reducing their margins. Let's just put it that way. I don't care if you're in retail, if you're in fast food. I've been in both. It doesn't matter whether you've been in healthcare. I've been in that business and in certain other industries. The wages are not growing in South Florida as rapidly as the cost of living here, basically. I was going to say the cost of labor. But the reality is that other cities are benefiting from the influx. And you can argue that Chicago, New York, and others have benefited for the short term. I think it's going to reverse because we're starting to see the uptick again there. But you're absolutely right. We are nowhere near where we need to be in terms of our wages. And corporations are dealing with it. They're trying to hold steady as much as they can at the professional level. And I think one thing that nobody wants to talk about is, at the end of the day, Miami went through a significant boom, particularly during COVID, because of the migration of labor that was essentially very low waged. And I think that's also changing. All it takes is a stroke of a pen, whether at the state level or the federal level, for that to be impacted. And I think you're going to see that impact in the next year even further aggravated. I mean, I remember just a couple of years ago, many of you remember this, we were paying in fast food. I was in fast food as well. We were paying in fast food.
You can't hold a job.
I can't hold a job. Every IPO I chase, I don't know what's wrong with me. But what happens is you go from a sector that was paying essentially $10 on average to close to $15 on average, all within a matter of 2 years. You see the signs at the McDonald's drive-through, starting wage $15, all within a matter of 2 years. All those folks migrated into positions such as Uber drivers and others. And you're absolutely right. We're not catching up. We're way behind, and it's going to hit us like a ton of bricks.
By the way, Jose did run the Latin American division for Burger King Corporation, so he does know what he's talking about.
Real quick, I just wanted to add, there's a lot of context that matters, and this isn't a conversation that's at one point in time. Right? We can't compete with the whole region that we participate in and forget about what the cost of doing business in those places are as well. So I think that's something to balance as we think about it. I do believe in market economics. I believe wage pressure is going to take care of that. You go back 15 years, I don't know if you remember where you were 15 years ago, but the affordability of a home here was in a very different place. Sure. Interest rates were in a different place as well. So you can take the same amount of money and buy a lot less to take care of what you need today. Those market variables are all changing, and I think they're going to put natural wage pressure, and you're going to see that change in a favorable way, despite our kind of global competition, regional competition.
Maria, I'm sorry, we have a panel that loves to talk. You're going to have to tell us to shut
Yeah,
We have one more question, and we have to go because we have to kick off something at the rooftop. So
go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mafe Delgado. I didn't go to Northeastern, but I'm an immigrant, and I've been here for the past 15 years, working with multiple different companies, couple unicorns. But when we go back to the same topic, and not that I want to double down, but I think it's very significant and very important, yes, we know that there is like a massive discrepancy. But that also impacts the quality of the people that you're hiring today and that you are going to be hiring in the future. So how fast are we really moving when it comes into this? Because we're saying, yes, it's going to catch up, we're going to get there, but how fast do we really think we're going to get there? And I'll give you one quick example. If you're talking about like a tech company in San Francisco and you're trying to hire a software engineer over here, the salary discrepancy is massive. Yeah. And we're talking about, it's not only the salary base, but we're talking about bonuses, and we're also talking about equity in the company. So that's my question.
There's two factors, and I think one, we talked about it or alluded earlier. If you are truly progressive as an employer, you're upskilling or making an attempt to upskill your talent. Because you just don't want to just say, hey, you know what, we're shifting from a traditional large camera system to digital systems. It does take some time to train those individuals, but the reality is I'm not going to go out to market and recruit 200 people just because I shifted the equipment. Upskilling is still a very good strategy for employers to practice, many of which choose to let their employees go and go out and rehire at a cost that in some instances inflates their overall wage construct. The second point is I have had success recruiting people from the West Coast to the East Coast that are computer engineers that want to leave Palo Alto, that want to leave the Silicon Valley and come to South Florida. They love the weather, they love the culture. Some have done exceptionally well with the move. We've seen folks that have decided to move, and others that say, you know what, I grew up in California, just like we have a lot of Miami folks that won't move outside of Miami. You offer them an opportunity to go run an operation in Chicago, and they're like, no. I'm not going to Chicago.
It's called quality of life.
It's too
too,
cold
right?
up there. I'm not, I don't know what, so it does go both ways, but I think the concept of upskilling is way underrated in an environment where the wages are just going through the roof, and you're absolutely right. It is a market-driven environment. The market dictates that, but employers have the ability to train, develop, and upskill their talent so that they don't get stuck in the trap of having to let people go and hire at a higher wage rate.
Thank you. Thank you, JC, Jose, Luis. What an incredible panel. Please give it up for the panel. I know we could talk all night, but we're not going to do that. Or we can in a different environment.